No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
You are fake news.
All right, guys, this is episode 32. I can't believe it's 32. It's so weird because it goes by so fast. For all of you guys that have been watching since we started, thank you. We have a special guest in the house today, Greg Sumii. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is going to be fun. This is actually my first, I guess I could say guest co-host that's another tattoo artist that doesn't work in here. So this will be a lot of fun.
Have you done all your artists already?
You know what? A lot of them don't. No, I haven't. I want to eventually. Actually, Josh eventually is down, huh? You said it. So Josh too, or Josh also. It sucks when you have two. We have two Sams and two Joshes. So it's pretty fun.
That's fun, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, eventually we'll try to get everybody. I think Peach, like everybody that watches us knows all the people that work here for the most part, at least in my audience. And, I'm trying to get Peach on here. I'm trying to get some of the girls that are a little less, I want to say
shy.
Less camera shy, but maybe one day they'll step it up. But I'm super glad you're here.
Glad
if you guys don't know who Greg Sumii is, I don't know where you've been living under a rock, but he's obviously a tattoo artist and he works here in Fresno. We have been friends for quite some time and know a lot about each other. But if you guys have any questions, which is really the point of this whole show, if you guys have any questions you want to ask, feel free to do so. That's what this show's about. So this is episode 32, Q&A. I call it my hump day extraordinaire. And usually it's like just loose format. So you guys know, ask your questions, we'll respond. We've asked some questions online, we'll respond to those. And other than that, we'll get spicy into the comment section.
Is Wednesdays like the only day that you do it?
I've only done them on Wednesdays. I've had quite a few guests over the last year-ish. It's been a year. Man, it's weird how fast it goes.
Right.
I always keep thinking that one day it's going to be episode 100.
I'm trying to do the math on, like you said, episode 32. How many
you're going to have to help me with that.
A month? Is that what, 50?
There's in a year.
In a year?
Yep. So
I was thinking it's 4 in a month. But...
Yep. It's really hard because I'm not a math. We're artists, guys. So
right.
Actually,
something.
I always excuse myself to everybody watching. I'm dyslexic and I'm an artist, so bear with me. And sometimes even when I'm reading like remarks and shit, I'm like, just guys, hang in with me. So anyway, again, if you guys have questions for us, ask them here. If you have a question specifically for Greg, ask him, and we'll get into the questions right away.
Last time was in COVID. That's right. Yeah, that
True.
was a remote one. I was in a room.
That was true.
Thing, yeah.
And that was really cool. I'm always thankful when people actually join me doing this because I know it's not easy. To me, I mean, if you don't do this regularly, because even me doing it, there's pressure. There's this like level of pressure that I actually think is cool. I think it's good. Again, we've talked about this extensively before in the past over the years that this is a great way to connect with people, and it's really rewarding. But it's also still like there's a personal development layer to it that you start to develop as a person, like almost at a higher level of communication, getting over yourself, not being so nervous, not being camera shy. Right. People say all the time, you're such a natural on camera. And I'm like, no idea how many times I've sat in front of a camera like an idiot and deleted. I've deleted way more than I've ever posted by far. Yeah. So what's exciting is...
Thank God for that delete button.
I know. That's why I don't always go live. Sometimes live, you got to be prepared for it. But most of the stuff that I pre-record is definitely deleted. I got my mom on here. That's always exciting. Mom watches.
Hi, Mom.
Yep. Dad watches too. He's probably going to jump on here. Guys, we're going to do our best to respond to all of you that are commenting live. So again, if you guys want to say hi, let us know where you're calling from. watching, longtime callers, no time listeners. Let us know where you guys are actually watching from, and shoot your questions in. We got Adam on here.
What up, Adam? That's a client of mine.
Nice.
Good dude.
It's really cool too to like have cross platforms, like your audience, my audience, because I know so many people that know you. Matter of fact, I would be surprised if anybody on here watching doesn't know of you at least. I would say in Fresno, this will be a little horn tooting moment, but in Fresno, you're probably, I would say, the most known artist that I've been aware of for like the last at least 10 years or more.
Yeah. Early on, I was pretty loud, I guess, and did a lot of alternative ways of promoting and stuff like that. So
how's that's changed a lot over the years?
It has, yeah. Like I've ran out of steam a little bit, in a good way though, to where I'm able to focus on other stuff. But yeah, in the very beginning, like when I first started and opened Liquid Fetish, I thought about it and I'm like, instead of having a budget for marketing, like we're artists, so we should have creative avenues of marketing. So what I did is just different like artistic ways of marketing, and that worked out. But that put me out there, put a lot of people out there that were part of what we were doing, and it was cool and it was fun, but it took a lot out of me. And you know, you wear so many hats as an artist that's trying to grow and focus on your clientele and grow your clientele and develop your artwork and your trade and your craft and all of that, but then also build a brand, build a company and all that kind of stuff. And then the other hat is getting employees and developing an actual business with other artists and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a fun ride, but we had a big gallery and had art shows. We had we did a little crossover into like music and entertainment. I worked with some other guys, Isaac, a good friend of mine, but he was part of a company called What Is, and they were involved with the music industry. So we put on concerts and stuff. A lot of it that was for Art Hop, but that worked in conjunction with what I was doing artistically. We would have kind of like a mix of an art show and a concert, and then that ran its course. And then I started to open up other shops, and there's just so much on my plate. So, you know, you park one thing and then you move on to the next. So then we opened up other shops, and then it's coming around kind of full circle. So where now I am focusing on trying to consolidate, downsize, and focus on my artwork. Right. You know? And me as a person, I've sacrificed so much personally and in my personal life and family, all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
true.
It's hard to say what you regret, you know what I mean? Because there's always sacrifices along the way, but then you know that a lot of what I do now, where I'm at, where my family's at, wouldn't be if I hadn't worked so hard back then. But then, you know, sometimes you look back and you're like, man, I should have done that differently. Or
I wonder if people know that too. And I'm assuming this is kind of universal, but especially for people who are really pushing kind of their limits and trying more than maybe the average person tries to build or create or, you know, whatever they embark on. I remember reading this once, and it like really hit me like a ton of bricks. It just made so much sense that the path to success often feels like you're not on it. And I thought that was really interesting because how often you're like, I really hope this is for something. I really hope this actually matters, because you're just grinding and then you're like, I hope, because then you go home and it's quiet.
Times I've thought that, like,
and you're like, is this right? Am I doing this right?
Especially when you're knee deep in it, you've already invested so much, and the best part is when you see it start coming to fruition and things start developing. And on the flip side of that, of it not being for anything, is when it takes off even bigger than what you expected. So that's a great thing. But I've had both. Like I've done things and thought they were gonna like come to fruition and be super beneficial, and they turned out to not be much, and then you just kind of navigate away from that. So yeah, a lot of that is just kind of navigating the waters and steering and trying new things and
always kind of doing this. I mean, there's a competence and confidence level that comes eventually with you doing enough things where you feel like, if I embark on this thing, I have a high level of confidence that I can make it happen, because I know I don't quit. So that's one of the rewards, is you start to get this like confidence where you can say, like, I believe in me. I actually can count on me, because I've done it before multiple times, while thinking, am I fucking this up completely? And then you realize, oh, I made it through. So that's really cool. I don't want to forget you guys on here. So we got a couple of people saying hello. I got Jennifer on here saying Jen watches, and yes, Jen, thanks for watching. Let's go. Lenore saying she's from San Jose. I thought you were local.
Hello in San Jose. Unsend.
Yep. We got
How many
Gabriella.
times have I wanted to unsend?
I know, right? Gabriella saying hello.
Hi. Gabby and Rab or John.
There you
How's it
go.
going, John?
So what's up, guys? Thanks for being on here again. You guys, this is a Q&A, so ask us anything, or at least say hello and let us know where you guys are watching from. I got my pops on here. Hey, Josh, good to see you. See you're feeling better. Yes.
That's mom and dad.
Yeah, that's dad.
Nice.
And so they're probably watching from the living room, which is actually really cool.
It's always good to have family support.
You know what? If it was just my parents on here watching, I
Right.
would still think
You'd
this is
still
super
enjoy
cool.
it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if nobody was watching, I think I would probably feel silly, but my parents aren't going to let me hang and leave me hanging. Joanna, thanks for being on here. Nick Bailey's on here.
Nick, what's up?
And let's see, just cool that you guys really thought about your clients that so appreciate your artwork. You know, that's a good one. Not necessarily
More so than everybody thinks.
Yeah.
Like seriously, more so than everybody thinks. Like, yeah.
I think
my
that's
clients.
That's not a question, but that's a really good topic for us to stick on for a minute for that reason, because of the obvious reasons that people don't quite realize how much it matters to us.
Right.
Right.
Like
We're
my
kinda hanging on it.
satisfaction comes through my client satisfactions. Like when they're jazzed, when they're excited, and they're appreciative of what they get, then it pushes me, but it also makes me feel like, okay, I enjoy that tattoo too. Like it came out as good as I thought when my clients also confirmed that. So that's cool.
That is great. I do that a lot where, you know, you always have I call them star clients, right? It's probably kind of a common term. My star clients where, you know, they're not worried about the price. They're more than happy to even pay you a little more than you asked for. They sit like champs. They cut like they're always on. They're just perfect clients, and you get along with them like at a deep level.
Right.
Ian, you're probably watching. You know, I'm talking about you. And it's really cool because the appreciation they show for you, like I said, it's that confirmation that like all of this might not just always be for nothing. Because
Right.
I'll be honest with you, especially when you're really on the grind, I really do feel like a lot of times like I have to remind myself this is what you're supposed to be doing, and it oftentimes feels there's this like almost like signal of loneliness. It's like you're often either really grinding and distracted, doing all these things, spinning plates, and then you're by yourself.
Right.
And then it feels like, well, what?
Right.
It all just kind of halts. It's kind of like the holidays.
Yeah.
You're around all your family, and then all of a sudden, it's all over, and you're like,
Well,
what?
sometimes those moments are really good. Like
They can be.
those quiet, like just alone moments. And you've been in a whirlwind of fuckery and work and all that kind of
When
stuff.
a Kurt Cobain tattoo doesn't show up and it gives you a day off, and you can just
Right.
go,
You're like, I wanted to do it, but you know what? Day off. I'm not
let's
mad
breathe.
at it.
Yep. Let's see here. So we got Carson on here. What's up, Carson? My mom is asking, are your styles and tattoos very different? Why don't
Not
you
really.
Why don't you answer that? Yeah.
I think they're very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, style wise. Yeah.
I steal a lot of Greg's ideas.
Josh ventures out a lot more than I do now. Like I used to, like in the beginning of my career, I guess it would be called. I was trying any and all styles, but we do that a lot as artists to, I think, learn different techniques and different principles and different styles that can also strengthen other styles and apply.
Yeah.
I might not do American traditional, but learning to have solid line work and stuff will definitely apply, or the way that I'm going to saturate, or the way that people in American traditional saturate, that can also apply to strengthening your black and gray and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So yeah, I did a lot of different styles. I mean, I think I started off kind of being known for color realism, and now I won't touch that.
And that's interesting too. I got to ask you that because I remember the first time I heard the name Greg Sumii was a painting of yours, I think maybe it was Tower Tattoo, but I think it was the owner Kim who owned a shop, and she had a painting of yours up, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
And it was, I don't remember who it was, but it was a color realism painting. It was beautiful. And I was like blown away by it. And then I think I saw your name or asked about you or whoever painted it. And I noticed that at first you had a lot of color stuff. You had a lot of those things. And now even on your Instagram, it says black and gray artist.
Right.
What
Right,
was
yeah.
that like? That was a conscious transition, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. For me, I think that I was extremely impressed with color realism, and of course it was an easy transition from my oil painting, which is in realism and portraits, and of course it's all in color and all that kind of stuff. But I started going to big expos, and a lot of these artists that I'd follow that are amazing, and I'd recognize their specific pieces or tattoos that that they were known for, that I saw and really liked. And I would see these clients walking around, and I'd see that tattoo, and I'd run up and I'd be like, yo, let me check that out. And I'd be disappointed time and time again.
With the
I'd
color.
be like, with how flat it looked, how it did not look like what they have posted on their social media page, you know. And I'd ask the client, you know, how old is that? And they'd be like 2 years, 3 years. So I started to realize that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, color realism, actually, let me say this first. It's come a long way, and I've seen a lot of these modern color realism artists do these new techniques that helps provide more structure, and it doesn't look as flat as
Starting to understand it a little more.
But before, these amazing color realism pieces, once they healed and the sun had its way with them for a couple years, they would fade and look a little bit flat.
Kind of separate too, the colors, like you would see instead of blended.
You're blending like an oil painting, and you're layering these colors, but over time the colors begin to separate, and now you have blotchy, like blotchy sections of different colors. And it was popular at the time to play with a lot of lighting, where you'd have a green highlight or these different types of cool lighting, and it would look really cool when it was fresh, but when it was healed, it looked fucked
wild,
up. Like
kind of messy.
Yeah, it looked like a soup of different colors and stuff. And then you'd have somebody who's not nearly as talented who does color tattoos, and when theirs is healed next to this really talented artist and theirs is healed, because of the way that it fades, you really can't see the difference. They look about the same, you know what I mean? So I think it was overall the integrity of the color realism tattoo that pulled me away from that. And then I don't know, just something about the classiness and the soft transitions of black and gray.
There's an aesthetic to it, that's really satisfying. Now anybody who doesn't know an essay about art and the terminology, or specifically of tattooing, you know, you're limiting your palette obviously significantly by just sticking to tones and shades of gray, which is really difficult because you're not starting with white paper, and you're starting with skin tone, and you're not ending with jet black, you know, Sharpie marker. You're ending with a darkish gray, a super dark gray if you're lucky. So your scale is shrunk, but there's still something really satisfying about working with just those few tools to make that image. Like when I'm doing colors, one of my favorite color portraits I ever did was a Star Wars character. I won't remember. Sorry, Star Wars fans. I've only seen it once. Forgive me. It's almost like a sin to some people, like that I don't know who these people names are. But anyway, it's this. It was one of Darth Vader. Before he was Darth Vader, it was his wife or something. Anyway, that's all I know. And it was a color portrait of her face, and it kind of had what you were talking about, the dimensions of different colors. The left side was lit different than the right side. And I haven't seen it in a long time, so how it's held up, Caleb, you're gonna have to follow up with me and let me know. He has super white skin, so it came out really, really great and vibrant. But I remember doing it and thinking, like, between doing that and black and gray, I'm almost so on autopilot with the color, because there's so much to think about and stop and wash out and clean and blend and stop and look and assess.
The messiness of it was also something I was not
so hard
sad about walking away from, like how much you have to clean your needle.
There's an attractiveness to the black and gray.
But then, you know, the black and gray, with how simple those tones are, there is so many different transitions and ways of doing black and gray and styles, and so many variations of it that really blew my mind in terms of, once I started getting into it and studying other artists and stuff like that. You can have high saturation, high contrast, you can have super smooth, you can really just like have it to where you have high detail with crisp detail, and you can have a loose look. Like, there's so many different ways to render solid, good black and gray, and there's so many black and gray artists that you can see their signature style in that, and they're different from each other, but yet it's 4 or 5 tones. You know what I mean? So do you
have a black and gray artist, past or present, current, that has always stood out to you, that someone that you look at and, you know, you're like, wow? Because I don't know any artists besides tattooers that do like just monotone artwork. I don't know like any painters or anybody that I can think of that stood out, but there's some tattooers that I can think of that I'm like, what in the world? Like that blows my mind. I study so many other artists, and it's crazy because there's so many
really, really good artists.
There really are.
That are just hitting the scene, and I'm looking at, you've never heard of them, and their artwork blows your
Yeah,
mind.
right.
And I'm just like, damn. So it's hard to keep up. No one, there's not any one single artist that has really stood out so much to where I focus on them as being the best, or someone that I
Right.
follow a lot. One name that comes to mind is an artist out of Texas. His name is David Vega.
Yeah. That's funny you
So
say that,
his
because
stuff-
that's who I was going to say.
Yeah, and his stuff grabbed me because of how smooth his transitions were.
That's what I love about him. It looks unreal.
Right, and he gets into these light tones where my extra light tone is basically the lightest it gets, and it's one spectrum. It seems like his light tones go to several spectrums, and it gets super light. But I still,
What does it look
am
like?
like when it's healed,
Right. Does that even,
do you even
last?
see that? Do
Right.
you know what I mean? Like his fresh pictures are very impressive, and I'm taking nothing away
Right.
from his skill and his ability to render these portraits so smooth.
Right.
But in the end, all that really matters is the healed product and what your client walks around with, and
True.
what your name is signed onto.
Because it's really satisfying to do something really cool today, and you know it looks great, and you did that, so you do get the credit of making that image. I actually, we could probably not go far down this rabbit hole, but or shouldn't go far down this rabbit hole. Is I even think that if you edit your photos to make it look the way you meant it to look, means that you as an artist know that.
It didn't quite hit the mark.
That's what you wanted.
Right,
And you
right.
knew how to do it, but
Right.
you might be limited by the tools, might be limited by the canvas, but you pushed a little further. Now it's, obviously if you do it too far, it's dishonest. So it's misleading to the tattoo. And oftentimes I'm sure you get it too. People bring you artwork, reference of somebody's tattoo and go, I want this. And I'm like, bro,
Right.
that's not real.
Right.
And you, especially because your tones and this person, it's not going to happen. It's not real. It's edited and it's not going to happen. So that's hard to deal with, but it does get frustrating time to time because I love black and gray. If I had the choice, I would pick black and gray for the classic nature of it. So, Mom, long-winded response to your question. We do have different styles. I think because I do I less niche myself, and I actually would like to be honest with you, but I'm so on the fence with color and black and gray that I don't know, something about color, because it's so hard, just draws me back into it. So I don't think I can abandon it. I think I would have to, it'd be like cutting off an arm. I envy your ability to do it.
When I do like little posts for small walk-ins and stuff like that, I'll take small color pieces here and there, and I enjoy it. I enjoy doing color when I do it here and there in small pieces. And usually it's almost never color realism. It's just illustrative style, or like a little traditional type thing, or it might even be realism with a color accent.
Right.
I might do an animal with the eyes or whatever, and I always enjoy it,
Yeah.
And even now, like I won't say I won't do color completely, like in my black and gray, but I will do like accent color. I've had fun with that trash polka style, so that's all
I've seen
black
some of
and
that on
gray,
yours.
and then you just accenting it with like a punchy red, or sometimes I've done blue or whatever. So I mean, I enjoy it when I do it. I mean, as humans, aesthetically, when we see color, it definitely it gives you an emotion.
There's like a satisfaction.
Yeah, like you enjoy seeing a splash of color. Like life would be boring in just black and white, but tattoos aren't boring in black and gray.
No kidding. I love black and gray too, for sure. And one of these days I might end up just sticking to it, just because it's so, I always thought about doing a black and gray year, like just this year, just see what it's like. I'm going to refuse color, but it's hard for me to stick to those guns. I got my sister on here. So Rochelle, what's up? Pretty much got my fam. So thanks, fam, for showing some support.
Yeah, you got a lot of good support.
Yep. We have Summer saying hello. Hey, Greg.
Get back to me when that'd be great.
Classic.
Yeah,
Summer.
Sarcasm.
Totally understand. Classic. Kathy saying, hi, Josh. Happy New Year. Love seeing your artwork. Still have to make an appointment. My aunt. So I got like family on here. This is great. It's a family reunion. Haley. Hello. Co-host, future co-host last week, co-host next week, but not this week. Let's see. Let's go through here. She's saying she's sad I'm missing this one. But still glad, still peep in from home. Yes. And it's funny too, because relationships form through here between people who've never even met. My sister and Haley are now like best friends or something, I guess. So it's really cool. Elizabeth saying the dynamic duo. Thanks for being on here, Elizabeth. Let's read this one. What art direction do you hope to explore in your future? So I'm going to say that's directed towards you.
Well,
And
tattoos is where
Alex?
it's at for me. Everybody knows that, and that's always where it's probably going to stay in terms of my art career. But I need to make time to paint. Like, painting is my therapy. It always was. I mean, everybody knows I was locked up for a good amount of time, and when I was in there, that's when I started painting. That's when I started tattooing, and that was my mental therapy.
Yeah.
And it still is to this day. But shit, like with building a brand, building a business, running a business, then dealing with your the client load, being a dad, all of that kind of stuff. It just starts putting your own personal things to the side. So I haven't painted in several years, and
Like
that's
at all?
where I need at all.
Not even a
At
little.
all. At all. I did some big murals during COVID. I did do that. I did a couple paintings in some art shows that I had a few years back. I dabbled with acrylic, which was fun. Like it dries so much faster than oil.
Yeah.
So you get immediate satisfaction. But other than that, yeah, no, I'd love to paint more. So with me consolidating shops and downsizing, that ultimately I think is where I'm headed, is to be able to paint and have a personal life again.
How about with your tattooing in specific? So I totally understand the personal life part. There's been times, actually right now I'm in it and I'll be in it for a few years. When I first started the shop, I even told my kids, like, you're just going to have to go without me for a while. It's just going to have to happen. And then things kind of, got to the point where I could be home a little more, and I was on the weekends and I could take a day off. I could plan trips. And now I'm getting into something new, which we won't get into now. It's a bit of a surprise. I've alluded to it a little bit, but it's some of you already know, but there's some things that I'm working on. There's some new things that I'm working on now. We'll talk about it after a little bit, because actually I need to talk to you about it. But other than that, it's going to be another one of those trips where I have to tell my kids and my family and just even friends, like, guys, you're just going to have to accept for a little while that
Hopefully it involves that van.
It's
a dope
actually, to be honest with you, it does. You'll find out. You'll see exactly why it does. It absolutely does.
I've lived vicarisly through you and the build on that van and
Dude,
all of your adventures.
I will say that's
this dude.
You know why I built that van specifically? If you were to guess, what would you say? What's other than the obvious? I mean, it's cool, but why do you think I really needed it? Like, what did I do that for?
I don't know. My guess would be, like, knowing you, the project in general of just building something and stepping away from tattoo art and putting that creative energy into something else.
Dude, no rules. I didn't have to be sterile. Nobody's giving me input. Nobody's asking me. Dude,
and you're having to be innovative and creative and look at this empty hull of a van and be like, I want to see this in here. How do I get that? What materials?
So satisfying.
Yeah.
Maybe like what you were saying with painting. When I got into it, it was about 3 or 4 months of full on going. Dude, I canceled so many appointments. They probably thought I was just sick. I don't really tell people why. I just say, hey, like, I can't make it. I got to reschedule. But man, I canceled so many appointments because I was so rewarding myself with that project. It was like a high that I've not really gotten from very many projects ever in my life. It was unbelievable. But the main reason, I didn't know that was actually going to happen. I had no idea that was going to happen, but it was like a love affair. It was so great. But really the main reason I did it, and absolutely what remains to be the result of it, is that it's turnkey escape, no planning, no logic, no logistics, no nothing. I got somebody canceled. Nobody's coming in tomorrow until noon.
Go, like, wrench on my van.
Yep. I got something to do, and it's for me. If I want to go to the beach and I only have a day off, maybe 1 day off, that's fine, because I don't have to get a hotel. I don't have to unpack our clothes. We're ready. Even with the kids, it's just turnkey, park at the river, throw your fishing line in, go home the next day, done.
I envy that.
And there's no work, dude. It's set up already. It's done. The bed's there, the fridge is there, the stove is there. Anyway, it's great. So, since you said living vicariously through me, one thing I have to point out too, since we were talking about, you brought up David Vega. Was it David Vega you said earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vega, yeah.
So that's actually the one person I've been looking at lately, specific, that is like blown my mind with black and gray. And I will say this too, and this is the truth, and I've probably said this to you to some extent before. When I started tattooing and wanting to get into realism, because it was, well, it's been about a decade now, but it seems still very recent that I wanted to try, and because I'm always learning. But I was looking at your art. I was looking at your art the exact same way when I first started. I'm like, what? Like, that is Like I didn't understand it.
That's
I remember,
what we do, right? We study other artists' art and we break it down, and then you just, that's
and what I learned from like looking at your work too, because I really don't pay attention to a whole lot of people's work. I don't know a bunch of artists. I don't really take the time to do that. It's never, I just find a few things that it's like, I want to like kind of scope in on that. And with your work, what I noticed right away that I was failing in, and you actually tipped me off on this years ago, if you don't remember, but I asked you like kind of compared to what I do and you do, if, I don't know if we, literally compared something, but I just asked you a question about some of the stuff you achieve in black and gray. And you said, you just, don't be afraid to use more black. And I was exactly doing that. And now I see so many people doing the same thing.
right.
And then I give them that same advice. So thank you for that advice.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure I got that somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we just keep passing it on.
And it really did actually, it really pushed literally my skill level to, a whole different height, because I didn't realize, like, after you said that, it's weird how I can look at my art and yours, but not pick that up and be like, hey, how come I'm not achieving this?
Just point it out.
And then I'm like, mind blown. It's right there in front of my face. Brody Jade is saying he's so good. She's talking about both of us. What can I say? Amanda, hello. So mom is asking, don't all tattoos change with time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I say that when I'm explaining the differences, in my humble opinion, between color and I'm being specific every time I say color realism, because I'm not picking on color tattoos. Right. I feel like when you're saturating solid, like in traditional American traditional Japanese and stuff like that, I've seen, and also it's up to the client too and how they take care of it. But for the most part, if you saturate it hard, I mean, it's not hard, but solid, then it's gonna last a lot longer. Right. But it's the blends, and color realism is more what I'm kind of picking on a little bit.
And because too, with color realism, like if you're really gonna get into the face, you paint, so this, like there's the rainbow is in the face, like there's everything from green and purple. Tones, it's everything.
And really. now with the ink companies, I mean, there's a million tones and colors and stuff like that, and it's like, in the end, when it heals, how many of those tones are really going to still be evident? You know what I mean? Like
some colors work, like red. You can get red pretty punchy for quite a long time. Certain blues, pastels, purples, things that are even more skin tone-ish, like tans, they're going to start to fade and they're going to start to diminish. So, yes, when mom's saying, do all tattoos change with time? There's certain colors that disappear and some that stay. So then that's where that separation comes from, where like maybe at first it looks great, but then you start to see this fall off while this stayed. And now it's more contrasty or punchy than you wanted it to be.
The way I look at it with the comparison between black and gray and color is like all tattoos are going to spread a little bit over time. But in my opinion, the fluidity of black ink, it's a crisp black line is going to hold integrity wise as a line more so than if you were to pull a line with color. Right. Color, that pigment, it's a thicker pigment, so it seems to spread a little bit more. So I don't know, I remember like maybe 10 years ago, a lot of people were doing where they were lining with color and stuff like that, and those lines just blur a little bit more. So, and with black and gray, you have all of your tones that are going to fade like all ink does over time. Black and gray, I feel, fades slower, considerably slower. But when it does, it gets softer. And
it's like more elegant.
Tones, those light tones smoothen out and just come into each other even more. So 10, 15 years, you come back on that black and gray piece and you just punch up the blacks again, and it almost looks better than when it was first done.
Because now you have different layers.
Smooth tones with crisp black.
That's true. Whenever I get to touch up an old piece like that, it's so satisfying because now you got like this huge scale you just worked with. Right. That you couldn't have achieved.
Just perfectly blended. Yeah. And you just come and just hit your dark tones again, and then boom, it's just.
I think the classicness to what you're describing between black and gray and color is true, because the way I've always understood it and explained it to people too, when they're kind of on the fence of, do I want a portrait in color or black and gray? I'm not sure. What do you think? I'll usually kind of it'll depend on the image, of course, and the person's skin.
And their skin tone. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I'll often do is let them know, like, hey, look, the 1970s had a color scheme, right, with photography. The 1960s had a color scheme. The 1950s and so on and so forth had a color scheme. Well, color photography wasn't always around, but there is a limit to it. But definitely 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s has color scheme and patterns that when you introduce color, you might not want to hang those photos up for all of time. You might put them in your photo album and store them away. But if it's something on your hallway or in your living room as a photo, you might want that in black and gray, because you're going to get these dingy 70s tones, oranges and yellows. Right. And tattoos are often like that, where I'll explain that to them, and almost always they pick black and gray. If you
I feel there's a classiness with black and gray too. Like, and as I got more into it, that style kind of took off, and it got a lot more popular, and there's a lot of people that started just being collectors of only black and gray. And then when I started venturing out and doing expos like all over the country, especially the more east you go, there's more American traditional shops out there and less black and gray. They kind of clients associate black and gray with West Coast, Chicano, LA, that type of stuff. So when we would go out there, we were more sought after, and there was less of us than there's traditional artists. So it helped me become more attached to focusing on being a black and gray artist, with those expos and traveling and stuff like that. And then when I come back home, there's a lot of black and gray in California, and you have to find your niche. There's a lot of good artists in Fresno even right now. There's so many new artists, and I'm proud of our town and the young talent that started to come up. I've seen so many artists that never heard of their name, and I looked at their work, and it's amazing. So we're finally getting a lot of good artists here. So kudos and big credit to all the young artists in Fresno that are coming up.
I think that's a really fair assessment too. And it happens to me often where I'll find somebody I've never heard of that's local, and I'm like, whoa, that's like,
and it looks like they've been around for a minute. I'm like, where have they been? Like,
like you guys all been hiding out, just ready to drop the bombs. We've talked about this off camera a little bit before we started here, which is why we were a little late, guys. So I don't apologize, because it was worth it. But thank you for waiting, and thank you for being patient. We were like 4 minutes late, but it's my fault. We were having a good conversation, and what we were talking about was kind of how the beer bug changed a lot of the dynamics between people wanting to work. Everybody's aware of this. Most people have heard these conversations. But
motivation levels,
just totally different.
And workers and tattoo artists.
And what I've noticed is, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, is there just closet artists out there just waiting to drop the bombs and us be like, we're irrelevant, like we're irrelevant. But then I keep thinking, like, there's room for everybody if you're willing to work hard and grow. But what's exciting is it pushes you too, because I'm always thinking there's another me, there's another you about to pop off, about to really start their journey, and they have tools and resources that we never had when we did those things.
There has to be. There has to be. Like, this doesn't end. Like, there's always new young talent, and then, like you said, there's better technology, there's better ink, there's better instructionals, there's YouTube, Pinterest, whatever. There's
literally us doing this available for people to watch, even for just entertainment. And this isn't even tutorial that you could have access to, that we not only never had, but it's cool to see the progress, because some people even they'll respond to me in a way that says, like, Josh, aren't you kind of worried about, like, and maybe you've got this before, but aren't you worried about saying some of the stuff and people learning from you and, like, just getting it and, like, stealing it? Like, what do you think I did? Like, artists are thieves.
It strengthens the industry in general when there's better artists. And if you and I mean, any artist really that's advanced can have a hand in helping and training a young artist to be better, it's only a better reflection of our industry.
I agree.
And when you have young artists that are scratchers and working out of garages and not really picking stuff up, it's a bad reflection. And we see that when we walk around at the fairgrounds or at the water park or at Walmart, and you see terrible art, and I'm like self-conscious about even being a tattoo artist when I see that shit, and I'm like, oh my god,
don't want to be associated.
Like, what the hell are these people doing?
So let me ask you this question I've never asked you before. This is a Q&A, but I'm going to ask you, from me to you, what would you say? Well, first off, do you think that there's information, like I call it coveting, where a lot of people are scared to share? And I think me and you are a lot alike in this way, that, like, I even promise my apprentices or anybody, run a couple classes on the weekends to kind of let these young people, or people that are not, they're completely novice in this industry, and they're mostly clients that might be interested in getting into it. I run this class where I can kind of break down what to expect to see if this is even for you. And basically all I'm doing is creating something I wish I had when I was younger, to know, because I had questions. There was just nothing. There was no Google search. There was no YouTube. So I'm just creating the thing I wish I had. And it's really cool. It's a great experience for me. But my point is, I always promise them and I've said this to every apprentice I have, I will tell you anything I know. Anything you think that I'm keeping from you, I might be keeping it from you because it's inappropriate at the moment. It's just not useful to you as a coach or as a mentor, but there's nothing that I won't tell you. Do you feel that same way? At least
100%, but with a disclaimer. So I am more than happy to shed game on advanced technique, anything like that. But I only want to do it to those that are hungry and motivated and that ask and have a desire.
Right.
So I learned that kind of the hard way, because I would tell my artists and other artists, like the young artists, like, hey, come sit in, come watch my tattoos, ask me anything. And there's been a couple times where I'm doing a portrait and I have an artist here and I'm like explaining a technique and I'm like da 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 da, and then you want to do this, and I look up and they're like on
not
the
even
phone,
paying attention.
and I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
like fuck.
Yeah.
So now
There's got to be a
it's like,
limit.
yeah, it's like if somebody shows that they're hungry and motivated enough, then I will open up the door all the fucking way. But I'm done, thinking that everybody...
You can't just be throwing it away out there.
No, and I used to think that everybody had the same mindset that I had early in my career, and I was wrong.
I
Some
totally
people
understand.
are there because they think being a tattoo artist is a rock style lifestyle, and it's easy or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's work. It's a lot of work, guys.
But yeah, no, if they're hungry and they want it, then
that's exactly why I say it. So it does sound like we're in the same boat, and that's a good observation, because that's something that, again, we talked about. I learned the hard way that you can't. There's a biblical verse that sums this up perfectly. That only a fool casts pearls before swine. Like that's true. Like pigs don't care about your pearls. Why would you put them in front of them? They just don't care. So it's a good reference. I'm not calling anybody a pig per se, but I think it's important to understand exactly that there's a lot of rich information. So when I tell these people specifically, even people I just met, they say, hey, I want to learn. What do I do? I don't even know where to start. First thing I literally start talking about to them is like how to just get safe, how to be safe, how to make yourself useful in a place like this so that you're not in the way, so you're not annoying, so that you're useful, so that you're gaining something, but you're adding something first before you ask, and how you can be safe, because you can't be in here unless you're a customer if you don't know how to be safe. And they want to get to the nuts and bolts of tattooing,
They
of
want
course.
to get a machine in their hand. They want to get on skin right away.
So if they ask, and so the reason I make that promise to them, and I'll tell them anything I know, is because I also know how to, I hate to say it's kind of tweak it, but I know how to package it in a way where I'm not going to tell you where to go buy needles and like set up your stuff and how to, if you're going to do it on carpet, how to do it as best. No, I'm not even going to go down that route. So I'm always going to tailor them back to, here's how you do it safely. First, if you don't know anything about the safety part of it, you shouldn't even be touching any of this stuff. Learn that first so you can make yourself useful. And 9 times out of 10, they realize that and they go elsewhere, or they don't, inquire. But with the apprentices that stick around and the people that actually inquire, they're willing to learn those things and they're patient enough.
Yeah, and you want the other ones that left to leave.
Absolutely. They've made that vote.
If they're eager to work on skin, like at the end of the day, skin is canvas, but canvas is a person. It's a human. It's somebody.
You can harm people.
Yeah, absolutely,
you really can.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. So Lenore saying both you guys are great. Makes me want to get me a sketchbook again.
Get it.
You should 100%.
Yeah, sketch all the time.
Something about for me, actually, I told you this years ago. My art experience started, like I've always been creative and I've always been an artist ever since I can remember. I just was making things just in my blood, I guess, in my DNA. I was 15 or 16 and I woke up from a dream and wanted to capture it. I always had that idea to try to do. And then one day there was this vivid dream and I woke up and I captured it. And I remember thinking, for the first time ever, I was like freeing my mind. And I remember thinking, there's no limit. Nobody can tell me what to do right now on this paper. I can make any world I want.
Right.
I can draw anything I want for any reason.
There's a lot of freedom.
And I was like, I was addicted from that point. So getting a sketchbook, Lenore, very great idea. Tapping it, I like to call it cosmic creativity. You're tapping into something that's trying to get done through you. And when you become part of it, it's like this drug.
And you might draw, you might write. Like it doesn't have to be a sketchbook of images. Like sometimes you might just write some shit out that you need to get out or that like you just are thinking about, and that's just as important. She's saying my daughter's asked me at different times maybe why I stopped drawing, and hearing you two, I'm getting inspired. So don't just get inspired, Lenore, take action, just do it. Like that's the best. Actually, if Jennifer, if you're still watching, I learned this from you. She just says, then do it. Like whenever you say, oh, you know what I always wanted to do? Her response is always, then do it. Because then it makes you go,
oh yeah, I'm just speaking out of my ass. I need to actually do it. So Lenore, don't just speak out of your ass. Do it. So get some paper right now, do your thing, whatever, get inspired, but also take action, because that's what it comes down to. Not just feeling good, but actually doing the thing itself.
Brody says, you guys made me wonder how Mike DeVries tattoos look now. Mike DeVries is one of the artists that, like I said, kind of fall into that category for me early on. Like, he was impressive. He's a good artist. I have nothing negative to say about that, but his tattoos are an example of that.
And he was kind of, not to try to be fair or something, but he was kind of doing some pretty advanced stuff, right? Like at the forefront of it. So
he was getting involved with some cool early tattoo marketing stuff with inks and like his shop and stuff like that. So nothing but props to him as an artist. But yeah, that style, and my guess is he's a very good artist, so he's probably figured out some of what I've figured out, and I would guarantee his style is probably a lot different now.
Yeah, for sure.
When I was working at Tower Tattoos, Cecil Porter would come there and guest spot a lot. So, I mean, I love sitting over his shoulder and watching his stuff. And again, he's an amazing artist, very talented. But, I mean, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he would tattoo a lot of people from Fresno, but he doesn't live here, and he'd bounce. So then there was a couple tattoos where they had me go over them, fix them or whatever. And I remembered watching those tattoos. I remembered seeing those tattoos in magazines and being super impressed. But then when that client brought that tattoo for me to fix, it was just like, what the fuck?
Right.
That probably was one of the most influential things in steering me away from color realism and helping me understand a lot about the life of ink and skin and what it does. So,
and that's really insightful. And I mean, it's nice to hear that too, because I do think, I mean, it's an easy business to get into that, your canvas leaves and you don't see it again. And you get repeat
he did
customers.
That. He traveled all over the world. He traveled to Europe, and I'm thinking, you get to stop in at a shop, get a client, do this great picture, put it on your Instagram or put on your whatever Instagram, and then you bounce. You don't ever have to see that client. You don't ever have to touch it up. You don't ever have to know whether it healed good, whether it didn't.
It's like it's you're doing. I mean, maybe back then this didn't exist, but you're doing it for the gram. You're doing it for now to look good, and that's, you're exactly right, that you can make it look good now, and everybody knows this. People have said it looked great day one, but look at it now and it looks destroyed.
Right. So there's a different pressure when you're tattooing in your backyard and you have a clientele that's local and you're developing relationships and clients that are continuing to come back. You got to make sure that those tattoos are going to heal.
And you learn. To me, that was probably one of the richest streams of information in terms of feedback. For me was, tattooing people close to you, like family members and loved ones, and in your own backyard, in your own town, because now you see it and you have to assess. You have to remember what you did. I'd make mental notes and sometimes physical notes of what I did, what I used. I felt like I overworked this, but I just experimental. There's times where I'm safe as I can be, but I'm like, I think I went a little extra on that. Let's see how that heals. And on different people, it'll be different. So it's a huge stream of information coming towards you that's all mixed. And you got to find your way through it and go, look, in the end, error and caution, and obviously making sure that what you're doing is safe and right and not going to harm or scar people. But at the same time, you want to create a great image. So there's this balance, and man, it looks great today. Let's see tomorrow.
Right.
And that's very difficult. And that's
ultimately what we take pride in as an artist, is how it heals.
Yeah.
And seeing tattoos that are 2,
so
3,
fun.
4, 5, 6, 10 years old, and they look great.
That is super fun. That's really
Nick,
cool.
what's up? That's my buddy. And he's using these big words. I think I have a pretty good vocabulary, but I don't know that word, Nick. Etymology. Etymology?
Etymology, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the etymology of polka trash tats? So it's actually trash polka. Etymology, I'm going to guess, is maybe the origins, the
That's
history.
what I was thinking.
So
the origins.
What I did is I stumbled across a couple trash polka pieces probably 7-8 years ago, and they grabbed my attention, and then I started researching, and from what I have gathered, it's originated in Germany. 2 artists, Volkel and Simone, I believe, and they kind of developed this style, and a lot of times they tattoo together on one piece on someone's body, but it was just a really cool style. It seems like a little bit of like World War II propaganda, You got black and gray realism, of course, is what I like about it.
And a lot of it's kind of can be very clip art too, like very just black,
very two-dimensional, mixed with like realism and stuff like that. But it's what I've kind of called or coined a controlled chaos.
Yeah.
So you have so many different things going on, but it all pretty much comes together as like a cohesive story that client is trying to tell. And I mean, how many times do we have clients that come and they're like, so I want to get this tattoo and I want all of these things in there, and they got all of these things that do not go together. But with Trash Polka, you can put all of that in there and, like
That's
I said,
true.
controlled chaos, and make it work. And you can put in dates, numbers, verses, names, images, and the way that you design it, it just works. So I love the style. I still do it when I have clients that want it. There was a time a few years ago.
This is kind of a good representation of even some of the stuff that I've seen you kind of do. This is not our work at all, guys, but I'm just going to show this to you so you can kind of get an idea of at least what we're talking about. You know what? It's probably, let me fix this real quick because the exposure is probably going to be wrong, but I'm going to show you guys kind of, give me a second. I'm going to show you guys this reference. So
it's usually monochromatic, meaning it's predominantly like black and gray with one accent color. Usually you see it with red. And again, it kind of looks like World War II propaganda art with stamped words, stamped numbers, symbols.
Right.
And then one of the things early on that I had to figure out, you know, we usually want to fill the space, any empty space. We're like, what can we put here? What can we put there? But with Trash Polka, having enough empty space is actually a real important part of that composition.
Yeah.
So early on, like I had to kind of pull away from wanting to saturate all the areas and understand
not fill it in.
Yeah. That
Stop
the negative
filling it
area
in.
Serves a purpose in Trash Polka. So
It's
cool style.
It's really cool for filler because oftentimes filler, depending on what somebody's getting, is like, it's hard to blend things time to time, especially if you've gone to different artists and you have this amalgamation of so many different people's ideas. Trash Polka is one of those things you can do that. And I've seen you do some of those images before in the past years ago, and you pull them off really well. I don't really think I've done, maybe kind of hinted at some of it in some of my work, but I haven't really done a full piece, I don't think. And it looks fun to do.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I was fortunate with having clients locally that were interested in that style and signing on and giving me free rein for a full back piece or a sleeve or something like that. So yeah, those were always fun. I still enjoy that a lot.
So he just gave you guys a bunch of good information about Trash Polka that I could have never done. So thank you for that. That was awesome.
I've seen some black turn green. Why does this happen? Because it's shitty ink and it's old ink, for the most part, or homemade ink.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I take that back. I have some homemade ink on me that is solid black. It's
There
so
is some.
impressive. Yeah,
I've seen it.
Yeah, like ink in general is made from soot. You know, ash.
Right.
I mean, that's really all black ink is soot, which it's not hard to make.
Mom, you should know this. Dad's got some prison tattoos, and they're green. That's why she's asking, because of my dad's arm. So yeah, exactly. It's a lot of times it's the quality of ink, but it can also too. It depends. Like everybody's skin tone is going to be different. So you know, one way, Mom, since you're asking, that I like to explain it to people is imagine a piece of transparent film, semi-transparent. Like you can see through it, but not real clear, just clear enough to see, like tracing paper. The color of that paper is going to determine the image you see coming through it. So if you have a skin tone that airs on being more blue, or skin tone that airs on being more on the reddish scale, or, you know, pigment, then it's like a transparent piece of film with that tint going over what maybe would be black. Because I've had people before where, you know, I've seen them cut and their tattoo is kind of prison style, and you see, or let's say it's got that greenish blue even tint to it, it's light and faded, and they get a cut and you see into it and it's like jet black, or at least much darker than it appears, because it's under the skin. So you're looking at tattoos through a layer of skin. So a lot of times that can actually change it massively.
Some of that can be blowouts too. Like if you blow out a line, meaning the line's not put in clean, so then it bleeds out a little bit, then it can look like a bluish color through the tone of the skin.
Yeah, but that's actually a good question, because a lot of people ask me that often, where they're like, how come some look green or blue?
Yeah, to me, green is always old shitty ink.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
probably that's going to be the case, because the stuff we have now, even when they see, you know, let's say novices tattooing, it looks pretty black. It's dark. It's like really saturated black. Let's see. I don't want to miss you guys if we are skipping over you. We're doing our best to get to you, but I don't know what he's referring to here.
So that's the two friends of mine,
Okay.
John Rabb and Nick Ortega. So they're talking amongst each other.
Okay, I see.
So
I see you guys.
disregard my question. Rabb looked it up for me.
You know what? You guys get some love in the comments. It's always cool to see that happen. Ian's on here. He said he made it. Ian, if you just jumped on, you already missed us gossiping about you. Paloma is saying hello. Let's see here. Mom is saying, plus when it comes to art, no two will ever be the same. That's definitely true. That's kind of the evolution of it all that makes it really fun. The part that
Which
I like the
is also
most.
cool about tattoos is like sometimes we're not computers and it doesn't have to be completely perfect. So some of those imperfections that you have are cool and they're good because that means that it was hand done by an artist, and I enjoy. I mean, there's errors and there's mistakes, and you don't want those, but there's some subtle imperfections that are part of the character of the tattoo, and those are important. I think equally important than just a computer executed tattoo that's just, you know what I mean, just completely perfect.
I completely agree too. And one of the things I've always thought regarding that is, you know, if anybody watching this right now, you know, us even sitting here, try to look around and try to find something that's handmade. Try to find something handcrafted that you own or that's accessible to you anywhere.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of stuff, if anything at all. So really do that. Really look around and check out your environment and recognize that if you are tattooed or have a tattoo, even if it's not necessarily the tattoo you wanted, or it's old and it's aged, maybe not so gracefully, or you have work by us and it's awesome.
Or there's a little error in there. Like some of those are just cool character pieces in your art. I mean, things that you can laugh at or say, hey, this happened when he did this, or you know what I mean?
I think it's great.
Or I moved. Like those are all cool little portions of that piece of art.
It's a personal experience, and then it's a handcrafted thing, and the value of that I think is high. Like you're wearing somebody's work, and it's handmade, it's handcrafted, and that's I think the thing that really drew me to it when I started doing it. That I realized it was more special than I expected. I thought that, you know, as a kid, I thought tattooing was cool, but I didn't realize actually how special it is until I started tattooing people, and they're walking around with it, they're leaving with it, and then they're wearing it and showing everybody else, and it's like, I made that. Like that's really cool. I'm proud of it. It's so awesome. Cool. I'm sure some people can imagine that and go, man, that sounds awesome, and it really is.
What's the other like great thing about what we do is every piece is a forever billboard. You know what I mean? And it's free advertising, but the flip side of that coin is you do one bad tattoo and that thing it works in reverse times 10.
Yeah.
You know, you do one shitty tattoo and that brings back 10 times the amount of negative attention than a good tattoo. So
that's true. That's one of the things I believe is that you, as a tattoo artist, something that's really benefited me is making sure that the people I'm tattooing I've built relationships with, whether it's they just walked in, I build rapport. That really goes a long way. You can never make that perfect, but it's really a good, at least fallback to make sure that you're at least working on people who can forgive you because they like you and you treat them right. And it's not foolproof, but it's definitely something, again, you have to learn the hard way. It's very difficult because there's going to be those pieces. And I've even had those pieces where I still don't agree with them, where they thought something was wrong. They didn't like it. They're disappointed. Very rare. I can only really right now think of one person specifically. And I actually think it was because of a personal vendetta. Like he just was mad that I wasn't getting him in when he wanted, and then he wouldn't show up and that kind of thing.
It's time to pick you apart in your work. And all
right.
That kind
And
of
now
stuff,
it's like time for him to say, your work's not this and that. Like, well, then why'd you beg to come? Why are you still begging to come to me and not showing up at the same time when I'm trying to make time for you? So it does happen.
Those clients speak for themselves though. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean is when they go off like that and they look at your work and there's always those ones. People understand, you know, nobody's going to be perfect. If you have to fail your way to success, which is often said by people, and I'm sure a lot of you heard this, then tattooing is one of the hardest places to do that in, for sure, because it's permanent.
We lose no sleep over those clients.
That's true. So Sonia, she's on here saying, Greg tattooed a portrait of my mom about 5 years ago. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm still in love with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia. Trying to remember which tattoo that was.
And maybe Sonia, you can remind us. Nick saying couldn't have asked for a better origin story. So Greg's spitting some info here. You guys are watching some good stuff. Let's see here. Let's go down here. Monica's saying hello.
Hi, Monica.
What's up, Monica?
She's a good client. I did a Monica helped me out here.
Monica Pardue.
Yeah, no, I did a Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, cool.
What's her name?
Stevie.
Stevie. Yep. Stevie Nicks tattoo on her.
That's right.
I loved it. Yeah.
That is cool. There's something really cool. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get into a question real quick I have for you that I personally have for you. But I'm going to read Jennifer's real fast. She said, that was interesting. I love learning about everything, even tattoos, even though I don't have any. She still doesn't have any. If she does.
That's the new cool. Like
Yeah.
everybody has tattoos.
Right.
So people that don't have tattoos, like that's the new in right there.
Yep.
You guys are lucky. You got a clean canvas.
Jim BB is asking, I believe this was a question, favorite thing to tattoo, i.e. animals, landscapes, portraits, etc. Since he asked that, and also Monica is confirming that
Stevie
it'll
Nicks,
Stevie Nicks.
yeah.
So Jim,
I can't even believe I forgot that.
that's actually what leads me into the question I have for Greg. So he's asking favorite thing to tattoo, i.e. animals, landscapes, portraits,
Jim, you just
etc.
said it right there. Those three.
Yeah.
Portraits, animals, and landscapes.
So I'm going to ask you specifically, if you could tattoo anything, like something that's been on your mind or that you always loved, that's classic in the past, future, present, whatever, or just something you've never done, and on anybody, what would that be and who would it be?
Well, it'd be on a vampire, pasty white skin. And I don't know. There's just so much that I can get into and I can get excited about if it's in the black and gray realism. Obviously, I enjoy portraits. Probably some type of an iconic, like Hollywood classic sleeve or something like that, to where they're iconic characters, and I get to try to capture the essence of every one of those characters. You know what I mean? I've done an iconic Hollywood sleeve with a lot of Hollywood icons, and I had a good time with that. But anything in that realm, off the top of my head, is really all I can come up with. But I can get excited about so many different things.
So like
That's
when
a
you're
hard
saying like
question.
animals, landscapes, if you were to pick one between animals, landscapes, and portraits, if you could only do one, which is obviously in a vacuum and not real, but if you could only do one of those and you had to stick with
I
that.
guess I would say portraits, but it's not by much. Like I get excited about doing animals and all the texture and the different furs and the different expressions in animals, whether it's like they're just kind of meek or whether they're ferocious or you know, being defensive. And then with landscapes, those are fun because those to me are the most organic freeing, because there's so much loose forgiveness in doing the landscape, because you don't have to have a precise eye or a precise mouth or whatever.
It's real hard to be wrong about the shape of a hill.
And I feel more like Bob Ross when you're doing landscape.
It's true. Every time you're like, I'm going to add a little tree. You even sound like it because you're like, you mind if I add a little tree? And they're like, go at it. And they're like, you know what? Maybe he needs a little friend.
Happy clouds.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoy doing landscapes. I enjoy the freehand. All my landscapes, for the most part, I freehand, and I love doing that when I'm doing those.
So Monica's saying, and also us riding in Yosemite.
Yeah. So her and her husband are really good clients. Her husband, I've done his entire back, and he came to me with this concept where he wanted an AC/DC,
AC/DC
back piece, and it was really rad because it has one of the famous album covers of all of AC/DC together in the middle of his back, and then specific songs, whatever the title of the song was.
That's cool.
Then we would translate that into a tattoo. So you'd have to know the song to be like, okay, I know what song that is. So his whole back, it was a long time coming, but it's done now. I'm real proud of that. And then Monica, yeah, she did a whole, just a tribute to Stevie Nicks. So it's one of the famous ones where she's standing there with a white dove.
Oh yeah. Like really cool lighting in that image.
Yeah. She's kind of glowing, full body one. So yeah, and she's got some beautiful roses. I love doing roses. So yeah, good clients. But they they ride. They ride all over the country, and they had this cool picture of them.
Was it motorcycles or horses?
Motorcycles.
Okay.
Yeah, Harleys.
I was just thinking Yosemite could be both.
Yeah, she's on the back and he's riding, and you have, I think, Half Dome, and it was a real photograph. So Half Dome, and then you have the road, and then the silhouette shadow of them on the bike.
That's cool.
So we did it like in a Polaroid photograph. So you have Half Dome, and then you have the road and just their shadow. So it looked cool.
That is cool.
And it was a challenge to do a shadow tattoo, but it came out good.
Let me ask you this, a little more technical related between artists. How important is like a really good, how important is the reference itself instead of just somebody saying, hey, here's my niece, nephew, or cousin or uncle that I want tattooed on me, as opposed to like picking. And maybe that's part of why the Hollywood thing is so good, is because the imagery is just top notch. I mean, you have such cool emotional imagery with so much lighting and so
and choices. You
thought
can
out.
be like, you can pick this picture of them laughing, this picture of them performing.
Right.
Yeah, you can pick and choose a lot of pictures.
Would you say that that's a huge part of it? That the actual reference itself, because a lot of people watching, have these questions where, does it matter what picture I bring, or can I just bring one from my phone? I mean, better quality reference, sure. Yeah. But do you pick sometimes between like lighting structures, or like, is there a thought process you go through?
Absolutely. So with the picture, the picture is all of it. I can do my job and do a flawless portrait, but the ones that usually get the most attention, even on my page, is a really, really cool picture. You know what I mean? Capturing that cool moment in time, that cool memory. But yeah, of course, technically you want something with high resolution versus low resolution. But there's times where they'll bring me a picture with really crisp resolution, and it's your typical school portrait where they're just a pose
just
and it's
flat
front. And then they have another one. They're like, yeah, I also have this one. And it's of somebody making a goofy face or laughing, and they have their hands up in the air or something. And it's just something about the essence of that moment and capturing that moment. Even if it's a blurry picture, I'd rather work with that and crispen it up, because you're capturing that memory and you're freezing it in time. And just the concept of of like getting a memory that somebody has and putting it on their skin for the rest of their life, to always look at it and remember and laugh and be like, fuck, like we were so silly in that picture, my daughter was doing this or whatever. So yeah, the picture always
do clients sometimes bring you photos that you pick from, and then they're like, I really like this one, but like, I don't know if I want him making this face, and you're like, you should?
All the time.
Talk them
all
into
the time.
it.
I always try to steer them to that and explain the value in those goofy moments. I mean, that's life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So sometimes, like I said, it's a perfectly posed school picture with a nice grin, and they got their pearly whites, and it's just perfect. But it's those ones where they're making a goofy face, or they're caught mid pose or mid thought, or they're looking off, and you're drawn in by the look in their eyes. You're like, what are they thinking about?
Yeah.
Who are they thinking about? Are they mad? Are they sad? Like, those are the things that, as a portrait artist, I try to like capture that essence right there. And
interesting.
Those are the ones that I love the most. So
it's interesting because I'll admit this only because it's in contrast to what you're saying. I often don't find myself necessarily getting that excited about capturing the moments. So hearing you say that, because I don't think this often, or ever, I don't really lean towards it. It actually sounds really like you got me excited to wait for my next portrait artist or portrait to come in, and me as an artist pick the one where the kid's playing or something, instead of him at school with the hand.
And you can do that with icons too. Like, they'll be like, I want a Marilyn Monroe, and they bring all these ones and that you've seen done before and all that kind of stuff. But I'll look and take hours and hours to scour the internet of these random pictures that you typically haven't seen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And those are the ones that I try to do.
So
but then sometimes if you got a really clear, crisp picture that's high resolution, like, I'll get into that too.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, ooh,
it's just cool to create detail. Because of the lighting and the way things are structured.
Right.
I really get excited about the lighting structures, where somebody has, it's called like 2-point lighting or 3-point lighting, where you have a light over here, a light over here. It's a harsh shadow here. One side's a little darker than the other, but this one's a soft light.
Yeah.
So and then this one's a hard light. Oh man, I get excited about that, because it's like almost a cheat code. Because when you have this nice soft grade, it's like kids doing faces where there's not a lot of breaks in the face. It's really easy to screw that up for me.
Yeah.
Whereas an old man with wrinkles,
you got to have those soft contours. You don't have rough edges like an adult.
Exactly. So I get excited when that light structure is really defined.
Right.
Somebody's a little bit older, get the
high
harsh
contrast with the shadows and stuff like that.
Super cool. That gets me excited. When there's that little white, bright side of their face that's just a little highlight, and then this is nice and soft. And anyway, that gets me excited. So there's a couple more questions we have. Actually, these come from some of the artists here in the shop. Let's see. This is from Sam. She asked, this is one of our apprentices. She asked, what's the first tattoo you ever did that you like how it turned out? That's a hard question, because that's probably a long time ago.
So is that you or me?
So this is you.
Right,
She's asking you. Yep.
The first tattoo I ever did that I liked was my first tattoo.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's kind of what grabbed my own attention, as this is something that I love doing. I enjoy doing it, and I liked how it turned out. And it was a weed plant, and it had like this spiral vortex behind it. You know what I mean?
Color?
It was done in prison.
Okay, so no color.
Black and gray. Yeah, funny story with that. Like I was actually getting tattooed. I have these little iron crosses right here, and the guy doing it, he didn't speak English, and it was just the way he was shading it was just real choppy. And I was trying to explain to him like, no, I shade it like this, but I'm not a tattoo artist. So I was doing my best to describe how to tattoo it. And one of my homeboys was like, do you think you can tattoo? What, you think you can do that? And I'm like, I'd like to try. He's like, well, I know how to make a machine. So tonight I'm going to make a machine. I'll give you my leg. Figure out what you want to do. So that's when I came up with like, oh, weed plant. You know what I mean? But yeah. I tattooed his leg that night, and it came out really good, and a career was born from that moment. So yeah, that was one that I really enjoyed doing. Other than that, in terms of that question, there have been very few tattoos that I didn't like how they turned out. And that's not tooting my own horn. That's just, I just give everything in all my tattoos. Mm-hmm. And if it's not an image that I'm not completely jazzed about, like I'm still going to find a way to make that tattoo to where I impress myself. Mm-hmm. Like I'm always trying to impress myself with the tattoo. And back to earlier when I think it was, I don't know, one of the clients was saying how they appreciate our art. And that's why I was saying, like, when I see a client that's just as excited and appreciative of that art, it confirms for me, like, what I put into it and what I did. So, yeah, there's very few that I haven't liked, and I can't remember them. So
that's good, because I can think of a few right away that I wish I would have done a couple of little tiny things different. But maybe that's sometimes it's a good thing to remember, and sometimes it actually is a bad thing, because, well, you just got to keep moving on and getting better. But I often do see where I'm like, God, I don't dwell too much, but it definitely, I have to remind myself at night that it's over. Like I'm done with it. Maybe I'd change it.
Your next tattoo is always your best tattoo. And you have to always think like that.
Do you feel that way when you're doing a portrait, where you get this opportunity to do it even better again? Like you're just like, I keep getting better. I keep pouring myself into it. And that's the excitement, is that just watch me. I'm gonna get even better now. This one's
I'm always studying other people's work, and like there's times where I do a tattoo and I'm like, that came out good. Yeah, I'm happy. Like I did that, and then I'll go jump on the gram that night and see 10 tattoos and blow the doors off of it, and I'll be like, womp womp womp, and then I'll study those and be excited for the next tattoo to try to implement some little technique or style. But yeah, I mean, we're our own worst critics.
But you just described the process of success, which is failure to success. So and what failure looks like isn't always trying and it completely tanks, although that is sometimes the case.
It's what you grab from failure. Mm-hmm. It's what you grab from not hitting the mark or missing the mark is what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? I want to understand that. I want to fix that. I want to correct that. I want to learn how to do this better. But if you fail, or if you fuck up and you just walk away with your head between your legs and just kind of like, whatever, I fucked up, then you're not gaining anything from that. You're not growing from that. You're not learning, which is why a lot of people end up quitting whatever they do, is because they beat themselves up about a mistake or about losing.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So
I think most people fail to start things because they'll dabble, and they realize it's really, really hard. It's not coming out the way they wanted. Right. Well, welcome, because at every level, you're going to find that to be true. And so I like to look at it as a learning process always, because I'm never where I want to be, but I'm always on the path, and that is very satisfying. It's very satisfying. So there is a couple more questions I'll ask real quick. I already asked mine. This is Haley's. Haley's usually our co-host. She is watching. So she says, at what moment, and I guess you kind of maybe alluded to this already, at what moment did you know that tattooing was what you wanted to do?
Well, okay, obviously I started in prison, so I tattooed for a couple of years in there.
But were you like convinced that was going to be your thing?
I was not at first. I was not at first. It was my thing in there.
Right.
I was like,
you kind of thought this is here for now. This is this, but
yeah, I didn't really think beyond that. But then I got transferred to a prison out of state, and that's kind of how the actual like serious career started. Is the warden there? She happened to be an artist, so for her hobby shop program, she had a paint program where inmates can get oil paints, and she had easels set up in a room. They can order canvases and stuff. I was getting in a lot of trouble. I was losing good time. I'd been in for, I don't know, 5 years, something like that. And I was just like, I need to find a hobby and focus on getting out of here on time, getting home to my family. So I was like, yeah, I used to like to draw, so I'm gonna jump in this class. And when I started painting, that's when I really kind of discovered that I had some artistic talent. So the painting
was that when the artistic part was clear to you?
Was the painting, yeah. With
that wasn't something evident to you when you were younger.
Not really. No, I like to draw. I feel like I was somewhat of an artist, but I wasn't that like amazing person. Like I would consider myself pretty decent, but I wasn't like amazing.
Yeah.
I wasn't that kid in high school that was just drawing all the time and known for drawing.
There was not a whole lot of promising stuff you were doing that led you to think you'd be doing what you're doing today.
Right.
Makes sense.
Right. So yeah, it was the painting that kind of like opened my eyes to that, and then I started getting into portraits in prison, and I was probably the only person that was doing portraits in there with single needle and like homemade equipment and stuff. But it was around that time because I was also.
Now this is just for some context. What year was this? Like like Google search images, YouTube kind of stuff.
Yeah, this was all. I didn't have any live models, obviously, for painting realism. So I was painting out of National Geographic magazines, tattoo magazines. One of my early portraits, or my first portrait, I think, was of Kat Von D. So everybody's like, "Oh, you love Kat Von D? You did this portrait of her." And I'm like, she's cool. Like, she's a pioneer for females in our industry, but the picture itself was just what I wanted to tattoo. I mean, what I wanted to paint.
Great image.
She had tattoos on her, so I was like, "Oh, painting the tattoos would be cool." So it turned out to be a painting that ended up getting published in a international tattoo magazine, and that happened when I was in. So I think that's what kind of opened my eyes to like, hey, this might be what I do when I get out. And when I first went in, I went in wanting to try to use my time to come out with something. So I started going to school.
Can I ask real quick? Is that common? Do you think that people that are, let's say, doing a significant stretch of time, to think like, what can I do in here to not just pass the time, but to actually like better myself so that.
I think in general it's a common thought, but those that like follow through with it wasn't super common. There wasn't a lot of people that were going to college. Like,
because I would imagine that's kind of unique to be in a situation like that and be thinking still about progress, future, advancing yourself,
right.
pouring, developing.
It depends how much time you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you got a 20 or 30 piece, you're not really thinking too much on those lines. But
so back to the classes and stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah. So anyways, I found a distance learning program at Colorado State University for social science. So I got a 2-year degree. Then I was probably 16 units away from a bachelor's in social science. And then I picked up the paintbrush and I didn't touch those books ever again. And I mean, maybe I should have just to finish the degree, but at that time,
I think you've done fine without it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm all right, but I focused.
You would have got it and not even used it, probably.
For sure. So like a social science degree, social work, it doesn't support a family like that type of income. But all my time was focused on painting.
Yeah.
So I just started painting my ass off every day. I ended up painting, I think, like 40 paintings or something like that in there.
Wow.
And I would just send them home. But the painting and the tattooing was what I would spend all my time in there doing, but they kind of helped each other. You know what I mean? But when I got out, I had to pretty much unlearn homemade equipment. I had to unlearn a lot of homemade
bad behaviors,
equipment technique, and then learn professional equipment, and then of course learn new techniques that go along with that.
Did you hit the ground running? Like, when was that pretty evident to you that day one, that's where I'm going? Like I'm going this route.
I did, yeah. I got.
That's probably kind of a nice relieving moment to be in such a bad environment to go to something where you have this freedom, but you don't feel maybe just assuming as lost as maybe if you got out going, what am I going to do with myself now?
Right.
Because I've heard a lot of those stories.
To have direction like that, as you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. People get lost really easy.
It was super intimidating too, though. Like you being in prison, like you're still living in a bubble, and the bubble doesn't exist in society. So when you have everybody in prison being like, "Oh, your paintings are so good," like, and you look at them and you know they're good, but in the free world, in the real world, are they just average?
Right.
Are they shit?
Not
are
sure.
they pretty good? Are they on a professional level? Like you really don't know. So yeah, getting out, it was intimidating, but I did hit the ground running. I had a business plan, and I had a 5-year trajectory of what I wanted to do in these years, and everything moved so much faster than what I planned.
I think that says a lot. In my opinion, knowing you over the years and getting to know you, I think that actually says what you just described the last 2 minutes, says a lot about who you are actually, and the kind of person that you are, which is why you've been able to be successful at what you do. And, so many people look up to you and revere you, me being one of them, at a time where I would look at your work and be like mind blown, going, wow, that's even possible. Maybe we should step it up a little and start paying attention to what you're doing instead of just, infinity symbols.
A lot of hours, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of sacrifice.
And a lot of, like what you're saying about your moment of, hitting the ground running, getting out of prison, and then, following this path, a lot of diligence, a lot of intentional action, not just let's see, let's wait, and advancing in your art and getting better at what you do as an artist.
The pressure too of failing not really being an option. I got out in my early 30s with 3 mouths to feed, and the feds have taken everything that I had prior to going in there. I had a lot of stuff, and all of that was stripped of so I came out with nothing. I got out of prison in Texas with a Greyhound bus ticket to California. I had a check for like $78, and I had a duffel bag with some underwear and some socks and some sweatshirts to my name, and just peace out. You know what I mean? But I had a book with names in there that were scratched out, and one was circled and it said Liquid Fetish.
Nice.
And a 5-year plan of what I wanted to do, and it was in the first 6 months get into any professional shop, and then in the first, by 3 years, get to the best shop in town, which at that time was Tower Tattoos, and then at the 5-year mark open up Liquid Fetish, my own shop. So that was like my 5-year plan. And I got into a shop 2 weeks out of the halfway house. I got into Tower Tattoos about 1.5 years, and then I opened up Liquid Fetish. I got into Tower Tattoos in 4 months, and then I was there for 1.5 years, and then I opened up Liquid Fetish 2 years out of prison. And then like the 5-year mark, I opened up the second Liquid Fetish. So everything moved so much faster, but I feel like I tattooed 3 times the amount during those first couple years. So I got a lot of experience, and that's what I knew I needed to do. It's like, dude, I'm getting out in my early 30s. I'm not young. I don't have time to just let this kind of like take shape and me make some money and let my career develop. Urgency. It was like, either you're going to get good fast, or you need to pick something else to fucking do, because you got bills to pay, you got mouths to feed, So I just grinded and I just worked day in, day out, long hours. I wanted to tattoo everything and anything, to learn everything that I could, styles. There's just, you know what I mean? But that ultimately, I think, is what got me to where I needed to be able to branch out and open up my own shop and all that kind of stuff.
Right. It sounds
and
to me
when
like
I did, I wasn't even wanting to open it up at the time. It was just the conditions that we were working in kind of forced me, but I think it was a good thing. So
and
I was ready.
It sounds to me like you, with all that work that you did, you built it's a foundation. You built that foundation, and then since then have refined it from there. It sounds like basically doing it the right way, which I don't know if saying going to prison, getting out, and then starting a business.
The right way is an apprenticeship all day long. I wish I would have had one. I could never give an apprenticeship because I'm not qualified to teach all that foundational stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm honest about that. If somebody comes to me having had an apprenticeship and they have all the basics, I can all day long teach you advanced technique. Right. But I just wish I would have had an apprenticeship. So I encourage any young artist out there, if you can get them, that's the direction to go. For sure.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, it'd be fun to do, we'll talk after this, but it'd be fun to do something sometime with you, maybe not necessarily a live, but an episode where we actually talk about that, because, as somebody coming from your background, which is quite a bit different than mine, but in my opinion, I see it, and I say this with all respect, we've came to a place to where we're comparable artists in the sense that, we've achieved things probably way greater than you thought you ever would.
Right.
You're satisfied with your work, which says a lot, because it's taken me 15 years of tattooing to actually be able to look at something and go,
Right. Like actually.
Wow.
Like,
Like,
right.
okay, I get it. That's cool. Like people say, oh, you know, you're high and mighty of yourself. I'm like, no, I respect what I was able to do.
But what they don't know is those moments are balanced out so much.
Oh, I know.
With those,
You're absolutely.
those moments where you're so self-conscious and you look at shit and you're just like, God damn,
Yeah.
like I should be doing this right now. Like I should be doing what he's doing, or you pick apart your artwork, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
there's 10 of those moments for every moment that I look at something and I'm like, yeah, I did that, you know?
Evangeline Dean. That's, oh, Ava. I just saw her picture. She's saying beautifully said. Thank you guys for watching, by the way, and thank you guys for jumping in here.
For tuning in.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Listening to us jibber jabber over here.
Matt, it's this. Honestly, this has been great for me too. And again, we've had these conversations before, but being able to share them with people to me means a lot because one is I like to think it is part of leaving a legacy, right? We're be able to create something. I mean, this is even though they're just watching on a flat screen on their phone or on a TV, which is no small thing in itself, but the fact that we're in a time where we can actually do this and share, and again, we're technically making things we never had, which is really cool because people can get a lot from that. Even if they're not tattooers, I think a lot of people can see this and go, okay, cool. Like they can hear that story of where you started and what your origins were and, you know, what the hills and valleys inevitably. And even hearing that, like you saying, most of the stuff you do, trust me, it's your great work that you feel excited about doing and you praise yourself for is absolutely humbled by all the stuff that you know you didn't necessarily succeed at. So people hearing that, I think means a lot because they do respond in a positive way. Nick is saying, bravo gents, great show. Thanks, Nick.
See you, Nick. Thank you.
Yep. Gabriela Mendez saying, this is so interesting. You've done amazing, Greg. And my mother is saying, thank you, Greg, for sharing your experience.
Sure.
Good sesh boys. Interesting. Congratulations. Absolutely love this episode. This is an awesome episode. Thank you guys, everybody, for saying that. I'm going to get to a couple last questions real quick. And maybe we'll do like a little speed round because, Greg, I don't want to have to keep you here all night, although I'm having a lot of fun with you. Well, we've answered some of these. So Josh actually asked this question, one of our apprentices, what made you start tattooing? But we answered that one.
A lot of time on my hands.
Yeah, he had a lot of time in his hands. And so I'm going to get to some of the questions.
And a shitty tattoo. Getting a shitty tattoo is actually really what started it.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
I have these tattoos, and I had Rush doing some poly on my neck, and I purposely told him, like, work around that. Like,
yeah.
These,
keep them.
I'm keeping them. Yeah. They're
memories.
Imperfectly perfect, you know what I mean? And they tell a story, and they're really important to me. So. And
those are your first ones?
Yeah, and those weren't my first tattoos. Those were my first tattoos in prison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've gotten a good amount in there, but yeah, those are the most important, I think.
So I asked a question earlier online and said, what's the best tattoo experience you've had? It won't take me long to get to these because I really genuinely mean this, guys that are watching, and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I ask, what is the best tattoo experience you've had? I love in-depth stuff. I mean, I love these conversations too, where people go into it. I know you can't do that on a question submitted on Instagram necessarily, but I promise you, I'm not always looking for you just to say, and maybe you're not doing this for this reason, but saying with you, like Tiffany's on here saying with you always, what's the best experience you've had while getting tattooed? I'm always looking for some insight because as an artist, I have my experience with you, but I've tattooed tens of thousands.
With you being the client?
With them being the client, like what's the best experience they've had as a client? I want to hear that because my end of it's totally different. I'm focused, I'm thinking, I'm paying attention most of the time.
Yeah, through their eyes.
Yeah, so I'm always asking that. So that's what I mean by this. But there's no right or wrong answers. I'm not discouraging you guys, but
sure, are you asking the audience?
Yeah, so what's the best experience you've had? And I'm asking them, and they've said, Tiffany's on here saying with you always, responding to me. So I appreciate that, of course. And I've been tattooing her for years, so that's nice to hear. Natalia is saying none, sadly. But again, I think she's assuming that I'm asking the best experience she's had with me. I'm asking just in general. So I will ask this again eventually because I do genuinely want to hear like cool stories. And maybe, and I've even had clients on here before on the show, like Ian's been on here. It's really fun to like just show that kind of dynamic through the video. Excuse me. Chantel's saying,
is one of your clients?
Yeah, I'm doing a full, excuse me, a full dinosaur sleeve on him. We're about 75% done. It's taken over a year. He's super regular and super consistent. He's vampire skin. He's not necessarily a small guy. I mean, he's a fit person, but he's got, a nice size arm. So I can really just get so much out of it. He's a perfect client. So thank you, Ian, for that. Chantel saying definitely my session with you 100%. So thank you guys for absolutely being encouraging. A couple more responses are, another one with you, Josh Ray Farmer, transforming an idea into masterpiece. Natalie is saying that, and I got to do something. Actually, I don't know if she knows this, but I did a portrait on her of a warrior girl whose face is really dirty. Mm-hmm. Actually, her skin's almost kind of trash polka like, because there's blood, there's dirt, there's grime. Yeah. And I'm like, that's really hard. Like, it feels so, while doing it, right, it was like I was 3 hours
you're
in.
making mistakes.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, but it came out. It's going to be beautiful when I'm done.
Translated well.
Yeah, I was like, whew, thank goodness. Someone else is on here saying my artist wore a tribal mask while he was tattooing me.
Oh shit.
That's kind of cool. I've always thought it'd be fun to dress up. I don't really do the whole Halloween like celebrating thing, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to dress up like full on costume.
Yeah.
I always think of that one of, I think it's Sailor Jerry where he's getting tattooed or he's tattooing a gorilla. He's in a full gorilla suit. I just thought that'd be cool.
I haven't seen that.
So Ian's on here saying, well, there's one about the Woosta. That's an inside joke. You guys won't get it. But the Woosta's here. So, also, let's see. Someone's on here saying, I have one I probably shouldn't share, but was for sure one of the best.
Is that different than what we're looking at?
Yeah. So this is actually something I submit. So what I usually do is on Instagram, I submit a question, people respond to it, and then I
this is the live thing. Yeah.
But usually and thank you guys also, of course, for submitting those responses. But usually we get more into the live Q&A and prioritize kind of on here.
I've seen it come up a couple times on here. How hard is it tattooing over a scar, or something about tattooing over a scar?
Okay.
So there's a lot of variables involved with that. So it depends on like how old it is. It depends on if it's keloided, if it's flat. I think for the most part, like tattooing over a scar is never anything that's super intimidating for me or anything like that. But you're strategic in where you place your image, so that way any of the like high detailed areas aren't going to be like directly on the scar.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is just generally speaking, because you can have a puffy keloided scar that's huge, and you can have just a really subtle scar. You can have
some scars can totally be like, you can almost not even
you can disguise them, and you can tattoo right over them. Usually that's nothing that's going to be keloided though. That's like a flat.
What are some of the common? Because I actually get that question a lot. What are some of the common scars?
Most scars I think are going to be from a cesarean or a tummy tuck.
Yeah.
Those are usually the ones that I think most people want to have some type of scar. I mean, some type of tattoo to
camouflage or cover. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that's true. I get that a lot too, where people have had surgeries. That's mostly what they're from. I've seen some injuries. I don't know how many of you guys have came in here and have barbed wire injuries from motorcycle crashes. Stop running into barbed wire fences. Now, granted, we live here by the foothills and there's lots of barbed wire fences. But man, I can't tell you how many times people come in here. I can call it out now. I'm like, barbed wire? Like, yeah, how'd you know? I'm like, because I've seen it a million times now. I've seen some nasty stuff, but it depends on the nature of the scar,
right?
What it looks like for sure. So to that question, it's hard. I would say it is harder. Definitely, it's not easier or just as easy as skin that's undamaged, but tattooing over scars definitely possible. And if you go to a good artist, which you want to do, like you were saying, strategically placing it is a big part of it too.
Yeah. And fitting the design to accommodate hiding that scar the best. Sometimes many times what they want to cover it with is not going to work. But being able to take that original idea and then tweak on it or suggest something that's similar that's going to accommodate that scar. So scars, they require some strategic like creativity and stuff, but overall tattooing over them isn't a huge deal.
Yeah. Landy's actually asking a good one. Mike and Ian, I'll get to you in a second, but she's saying, what about a skin graft scar? That is harder also too, because the skin's going to be different.
Yeah. That'd be a first for me, because she's referring to like skin graft as in skin that wasn't theirs placed there,
or theirs from a different part of their body.
From a different part of the body. Yeah.
I've seen this a lot.
I've done that. Usually I think when I've seen that, the skin that's replaced it is a lot lighter and
It's different.
and like in tone. So I mean, I don't know if it responds the same way. You know what I mean? It's obviously alive. It's
Right.
been graft. So I don't know.
I will add a little to that because I actually have had a few experiences with it. The skin isn't the same for sure. And actually after it's grafted, it's not the same. What's really weird, I had one experience specifically, and some other on the spectrum where the skin wasn't tattooable. Like it blew my mind.
Like spongy.
I
it just
literally
wouldn't take
could
the ink.
not get it. I would do everything I could, and it was literally not tattooing. And I'm like, is this skin? Like what?
shit.
What is the deal? I could not get it to take. And I was using a liner, and then I switched to shader, thinking maybe different colors to use black. Could not do it. And that was with reconstructive surgery that somebody had. But that's the only time I've seen it be that big of a problem. And it's usually with skin grafts. You know, it's going to be with some sort of reconstructive surgery. Usually, I mean, I haven't seen it from accidents, although that's also a thing. But the skin grafting is not necessarily like a scar. It's skin that's been managed in a new way, and sometimes it's really tight.
And it's skin from, like you said, a different area of the body,
Yeah.
so it might not belong there.
Yeah, it's very
But
difficult.
they usually choose skin from certain areas that are more conducive for the area that it needs to go.
Yeah, I actually have just a kind of a fun story, and it was so long ago. And of course, I'm not saying any names, keeping total privacy. I call them adenectomies, right? If somebody's had a double mastectomy for cancerous reasons, they've had their breasts removed and they want nipples, so I call it a double adenectomy instead of a anyway removal. It's an adenectomy, and the reconstructive surgery, they'll take body parts. This one lady had some of her, let's say, pelvic area skin used for her chest, and grew hair on it. So it was like such different skin, and she hated it. And I told her, unless you want to cover the whole area,
Right.
I can't really, just put something in a weird spot. It's gonna make it look worse.
Right.
So it's hard. I actually think there's specific artists, and there's a lot coming out too over the last
There's
decade.
this one girl that I follow. I don't know where she's out of. I think she's out of the country, but it seems like that's all she does. And she deals with a lot of burn victims, a lot of skin grafting and stuff with really nasty scars, and just does amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of it is your like lace and drapery and stuff like that. Because it's females that she's working on mostly. But
So it's gonna be more of a specialist thing for sure.
I don't remember her name. I think I want to say like Kelly Mungie or something like that. But she might be like out of Australia, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what she does.
I've actually seen too, just to add to that a little, I've seen the most emotional responses from people. And so far I've seen it's only been women that have these sort of scenarios where they're going to want them covered or maybe fancied up. And the emotional response, not just necessarily crying, although that's part of it, but it's the connection that they're so happy afterwards. They're so grateful. Like they feel like that their problem has been solved, and you can see that. And it actually feels really good to be part of that. It's quite
You
powerful.
see a lot of that sometimes with just covering a bad tattoo.
Yes.
People, like especially females, they get a bad tattoo in an area where it makes them self-conscious about their body, and they're like, fuck, I haven't been able to wear a bikini or a bathing suit for 3 years because I hate this tattoo.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Have
with
you
bad
seen those tattoos where they so viscerally hate it that when they try to show it to you, you're like, it's not great, but I don't really see it.
As horrible as you think.
But they really, sometimes I think they're overacting, but if you really let them express themselves, you start to realize they really genuinely,
no, there's a lot
they're hurt.
There's a lot of people that are like that. I think
Yeah.
they stare at it and they pick it apart.
So let's get to some of these real quick before we jump off here, guys. I don't want to keep Greg here all night. Actually, I would totally, but I'll respect his time. Rochelle saying, Greg did my Memorial Grayson Ray turtle tattoo, which is really cool. That was at a memorial event. So that's my sister saying that. Have you ever tattooed breast removal? So Mom, yes, we just answered that, I guess. Some parts are thin and some tough. Landy's saying, probably in response to the skin graft. But I have it on my right arm and always wondered. So there's always a risk too, guys, with scars and discolored skin or skin grafts, or anytime you've had reconstructive surgery, there's always a risk that the piece itself. So you got to go to a good artist who's confident and competent and has had experience.
And honest with you.
Right.
And not just money hungry. And they're like, yeah, I can do that. Like,
right.
Yeah. You need honesty with, when you go into something like that.
This is a good one, actually. Desiree's asking, and this is a little more cosmetic, guys, than I'm used to, for sure. And I think maybe, Greg, is it okay to tattoo over spider or varicose veins?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never considered them because the skin's so thick over them, just like it is over any vein.
Right. Usually, actually, in those areas too, I go a little bit softer and lighter and build up instead of just jumping right in there and attacking it, because it's usually more sensitive skin.
Mm-hmm.
Stretch marks is usually what I see with, like, especially guys that have been working out, you know, and they have a lot of stretch marks in these areas here, and you're working on a sleeve and stuff, but they flare up when you tattoo them.
Yeah, they do. They get mad at
puffy,
you.
but they settle back down.
Right.
Then I kind of warn them too. I'm like, yo, this is going to flare up. It's going to look puffy, but it'll settle back down.
I've done that before where I didn't even see the scar. Actually, I've seen it before with maybe moles or birthmarks.
Out on you.
Yeah, and I'm tattooing. I'm like, did I do something wrong? Like, I've done it over spaces before where I didn't see a mole. There was no beauty mark, but you can tell it was just maybe without pigment,
right?
Because it just starts leaking, and you're like, wow, man. And they're like, is that okay? Like, it's not uncommon, but you know, we got to be careful. That's, you know, some people don't consider that sometimes, that you really do. If you have, you know, a lot of different moles or beauty marks and skin pigmentation changes in certain areas, it makes it really difficult, and actually sometimes just not a good idea to mess with. Right. That's a good point to make regarding scars too. Ian, this is a good question. I like this. And Ashley, by the way, thank you. 2 amazing artists. Ashley, you're amazing. Thank you. Ian is saying, is a full sleeve considered one tattoo or multiple tattoos put together in a single theme, cohesive piece, ? I actually think that's a really good question, because people do ask, like, how many tattoos do you have?
Right.
Eventually one, right?
I don't even know how to answer that.
I know.
I really don't.
Well, Natalie's saying good question. Yeah. She's even saying good question, Ian. I think I would consider it one tattoo, a sleeve. If it's cohesive, if somebody thought it out, it's part of that one image. I think that's one tattoo. I think if you can say, I got this because of this and this, there's different reasons and meanings, then consider those.
It depends on the style too. Like, if you have a sleeve of American traditional,
it might be individual tattoos.
Yeah, usually it's just individual tattoos with like stars in between. You know what I mean? There's 20 tattoos on a sleeve. So
yeah, it is a question I actually get asked fairly often, that people ask that they ask, like, what Ian's excited about is he has no tattoos besides what I've given him. Mm-hmm. He came to me, I don't know, I think he's late 20s, early 30s. Forgive me, Ian, if I'm wrong. Well, you can see him there. He's not an older guy. He's probably my age or younger, and it's totally fresh skin. He started out right. He came to me. I told him, I'm going to charge you a lot, dude. I'm just gonna be honest. It's full color. It's going to take a really long time. You know, obviously there's pain involved, but there's a lot of commitment involved in what he's wanting, which is really graphic, highly detailed. Basically he's saying your best color detailed portraits of dinosaurs, the whole arm. I'm like, man, we got a big opportunity here. And he has no other tattoos, and he's pale as shit.
Oh, that's cool.
And again, you can't maybe really see in the picture, but Ian, thank you so much for that vampire skin. And yeah, tattooing on him, he committed to it, and it's really cool because he could be proud of saying this whole sleeve, that's all he has. Yeah. It's just this amazing.
Yeah, I always envy people that are like later in life. They
thought through
the mistakes that we did, and they come with just clean skin, and they're just like, I want to get a sleeve.
Yeah. And how rare is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get a whole lot of people that have done it that way. So Ian, you're,
it's becoming more common though, especially with older people though. Like, you know, they're working class professionals. They didn't get any tattoos, and now they're 45, 50 years old. They're like, I want a sleeve. And I'm
smart.
Like, oh, you're dope.
Yeah, that's smart.
I'm game.
That's really smart. So guys, I think we got to all your questions, all your responses. I think we actually got into some really cool stuff. Thank you guys. Absolutely. Of course, always for watching and commenting and responding.
Yeah. Thank all of you guys for tuning in and listening to us bullshit.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. Greg, super thanks actually for coming in and doing this with me. It's always a good time. This isn't unusual for us to be able to get together and talk for an hour and a half and make it feel like 20 minutes. So that's really cool, and I'm glad that we got to be able to do this with everybody. So thank you guys all for joining. Thanks, Greg, for coming in.
Thank you.
Episode 32 is done, and we will see you guys next time, Wednesday, always around 7:30. It's been pretty consistent. 7:30 seems to be it, and we'll see you next time. So thank you, and good night.
Good night. See ya.